Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. And today, Thomas, why don't we listen to our listeners who ask us for phone. They give us all kinds of helpful hints. And, we could at least try to do that and keep our voices modulated, okay? All right. Yeah.
No, I don't know. Can I do that?
Okay. The reason that we have to talk to you guys is it's so exciting. Have you been watching Trump's tweets today? So we've wrapped all this stuff up in a little article link down below so you can look and see what we're talking about, because who knows, you may not even get to this space until a year from now and you don't know what we're talking about. Okay, Thomas, why is this a great day for Americans?
Because the tide that was coming in that was attempting to drown our duly elected president has now reversed. The tide is going out, and it is a rip tide, and the deep staters don't know how to swim. So they're being ripped to pieces. Now, why is that happening? We're going to go over that, and the ultimate moment happened just a few moments ago when you informed us to look at this, and we looked at it, and some people are getting it out there in the news world, but what is really happening is what we talked about previously, why that happened. The Daily Caller had written articles in the New York Times, and Washington Post picked up on it and carried it as if the three judges in cases in Washington, D.C. acted as if they were in support of Trump. And then I made the joke about somebody putting on a MAGA hat that would be the last person to ever put on a MAGA hat. I mean, is there a critical mass that has been reached? So last night, as I was yelling, wasn't that me yelling? That about these things and about the way that it hasn't come out, even though Trump has spoken of these things, the George Papadopoulos crossfire hurricane investigation, which we've been harping about so long and yelling that I'm tired of yelling. So what happens today? Oh, folks, the biggest news you can possibly imagine. The deep state is on the run. And the reason it's on the run is because Trump hired two of the most powerful deep staters to be basically his legal representatives, but not so much legal as just a mouthpiece to go out there and to let everybody know that the tide has turned. Now, why is the tide turned? The tide turned when it came out that Loretta Lynch, because Comey accused her of some guilty sin, some horrible things she had done that he had yet to reveal, kind of as a threat to her, as a leverage point. But it still came out, and so it's one of three things that we mentioned yesterday. It's either we won't get into it. Anyway, Loretta Lynch has become implicated. Other people have become implicated, but the big factor was something that had happened quite some time ago, and that's that Stephen Halper has been called out. He's worked with everyone from Nixon up through Daddy Bush to right on through Obama, everybody. He's worked with everybody. And he's a CIA operative, parading as, a statesman and as a professor in Cambridge. And his group, Cambridge Intelligence Seminar, got closed down because they were simply called Russian spies. Who else was involved in that group? That would be Alexander Downer, a person who gave $25 million in one check to the Clinton Foundation. And through a period of years as the High Commissioner to Britain representing Australia, gave $86 million to the Clinton Foundation. And then there is, of course, the absolute Russian spy. There's hardly any. He's a Russian spy, but he's a Brit Russian spy, you see. He's the Maltese professor, Joseph Mifsud, and he and Downer, and now we know Stephen Halper, who was associated with some other very shady people that we went into, who Trump got in trouble for being with Cambridge Analytica. Well, Cambridge Analytica is owned by
Analytica. And anyway, we're so out in the weeds. And what the exciting thing is, Thomas, is about these tweets. When are we going to talk about the tweets?
We're going to get there. But the tide is going out because critical mass was reached. The time had come. The moon was in the right position, whatever. We couldn't figure it out. And we didn't think it was just the Stephen Halper.
Well, maybe it was because everybody started figuring the revelation that you had about Michael Flynn.
Well, Michael Flynn is that third unnamed person that Stephen Halper set up. He set up George Papadopoulos, Carter Page, actually the fourth one, Paul Manafort, who didn't go for it, but he also set up Michael Flynn, and Michael Flynn became a member of the Strategy Communication Laboratories, which is basically a way to use mind control for election results. They brag that they've done this in 25 countries. In 44 elections here in America that they've represented people. They were representing Ted Cruz before they went over and represented through Cambridge Analytica, which was that wasn't the big company. The big company is British. Cambridge Analytica was set up just to do work in America for elections. And they worked in 44 elections from 2012 on. So it came out that Stephen Halper, we thought, well, is that the thing that broke the camel's back? No. Here's probably what broke the camel's back. Rudy Giuliani. As soon as Rudy Giuliani was hired, Eric Schneiderman, the Attorney General for the state of New York, went down. Well, everybody had known he was a complete scumball for a long, long time, but no one had the guts to take him down. Oh, he went down. Smells a little fishy, didn't it? Loretta Lynch, through her connections, through her threats to the New York Police Department, gets revealed. New York. Rudy Giuliani. And then what happens? Joe, what's his name? DeGenevo came out, and we thought he was going to work for Trump, but no, he wasn't going to work for Trump. His wife has had to, recuse herself because of certain connections. So he's basically a voice out there, and he started, and it didn't turn the tide. Giuliani came, and Giuliani went, and he confronted Mueller. And he got out of Mueller right after just the word that I think Giuliani was coming. We have Rod Rosenstein coming out, making a very clear statement after Devin Nunes's memo said there was no Russian collusion between Trump and the Russians. It didn't happen. There was no Trump and his whole team completely innocent. Nothing there, folks. Rod Rosenstein came out and said that, but then they went after collusion. They kept telling the press there's going to be collusion charges against the president. That's stupid. From the beginning, we pointed out there's no such thing as bringing a crime, charging a sitting president with a crime. That's called impeachment. Only the Congress can do that. That's just silly. So if he committed a murder and was seen, okay, that's one thing. But in terms of these collusions or meddling in the election or somehow connections to Russia or...
Look, it's just a poorly thought out overthrow of the government, and they got caught short.
That is what seems to be now what everyone is saying, including, as Trump always calls them, the failing New York Times. We thought for a moment maybe it's because these companies are going down because Trump had threatened the Washington Post through Jeff Bezos by just blinking his eye and saying monopoly. We thought that it might be because of the inside work of Dan Coates stopping the surveillance on Americans that has now stirred up Silicon Valley, made Eric Schmidt disappear, make Facebook look what they, egg in the face. Berg is obviously a cardboard cutout. He knows nothing. So what we're seeing here is something other than that, and we believe it is possible that at the moment, and we said this was true, that when Andrew Weissman, for the third time, charged into, Paul Manafort's house at night, the Trump transition team records facility, and then Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer, when he breached that, then we knew there would be no questions for Trump. Trump isn't going to answer any questions to someone who could do that. Attorney-client privilege thrown out the window, then the U.S. Constitution is thrown out the window. Everything's thrown out the window. So at that point, he actually won, as we did point out. But that wasn't in effect when he won because it didn't turn the tide of the mainstream media, which is his number one enemy. China being second, unfortunately.
Don't go there. Let's stay focused. I want to get to the tweets. Come on.
Sorry. So what we're really seeing here is Rudy Giuliani going after Robert Mueller and saying, I know that you know that I know that your investigation of 9/11 was completely fake. I was there, Robert Mueller.
Yeah.
I witnessed it.
We're going there.
Trump said
9/11.
He was taking down the perpetrators of 9/11, and he said that when Giuliani was standing right next to him.
Mm-hmm.
Some people believe Giuliani was guilty that day. Going back and reviewing some of the things, it looks like he might have been played. I'm not sure. We had certain ideas.
But that would come out if there was a legitimate investigation. But
there can be no investigation until the Department of Justice is overthrown, because it is in control of the SES. It's in control of basically
say that new
the
people
shadow
here,
government.
the senior executive service. We keep hammering on that, but that's who your shadow government players are.
Now, I had to say all those things as preface to go through the 9 messages from Trump.
Okay.
Now, the 9 messages
So
from Trump.
exciting.
First
I'm just so
message,
excited
20
to see
hours
them
it
all.
says ago. Now, you just printed this up. The last message was 11 minutes. It says 11 minutes, and then you came and told us.
I saw them coming, that I wasn't feeling the conclusion of it. And then when we got the last one, that the president says, I hereby demand and will do so officially tomorrow that the Department of Justice look into whether or not the FBI DOJ infiltrated or campaigned for political purposes, and if such demands or requests were made by people within the Obama administration. And so for me, that's an action item, plus any little Laurel and Yanny skit of Covfefe. That's Covfefe, which is now, it requires that all of his tweets are kept as official record. So right there, Jeff Sessions, you're on notice, dude.
That's exactly. You
Okay.
took the wind out of my sail.
I finally
Betsy.
got to say something. See, Betsy has a lot to say, but I
know
can
you
never
do.
say it because Thomas wrestles me for the space. All right, go. All right, that's
Or
all I
just
have to
yells
say.
over
But
the
that's
top
why
of
I'm
you.
so excited, because that's clearly an action item from the executive office.
Because he included the DOJ and the FBI, this is a direct order to create a special counsel. If a special counsel isn't created
Why
instantaneously
do they need
by
a
this
special counsel? The Department of Justice should be doing their job.
it says FBI/DOJ. Special counsel is called into effect when you have to have an outside person because of problems between and or in the DOJ and the FBI. That's why the special counsel, the only reason the special counsel can actually be called into existence. An outside independent investigator comes in and investigates the DOJ and the FBI. This is a demand. It cannot be remanded. Once he says he's putting it in writing, it doesn't even matter. He ordered it. The people who believe stupid Obama and stupid Eric Holder and stupid Loretta Lynch's and stupid Robert Mueller and stupid James Comey's lies that there's always a firewall, a big border between the White House and the DOJ and the FBI, that is a lie. They take their orders from the executive branch. They are part of it. They are not independent, and that's why he can fire any of them at any time. And when he gives them an order, whether by a tweet, by a statement in public, by a letter, an executive order, it does not matter. They must respond, and then they must respond to him. And in general, if he makes it public, then they should respond to the public. So if Jeff Sessions does not create a special counsel to investigate the exact thing he just said here, he has grounds for firing him.
Oh, well, what if he just puts one of his junior attorneys on it? There's your special counsel.
Well, the special counsel, as he's pointing out in later tweets, has spent $20 million. As we pointed out, because of the special counsel's mandate, because of good old Janet Reno, when she changed it into a broad-based regulation, they have $100 million a year. He's making fun of the fact that he knows that. Spend $100 million to investigate all of these things, because let's just look at this. I hereby demand cannot be remanded. That is an executive order, whether they want to acknowledge it or not.
It's the first executive order by tweet.
And we'll do so officially tomorrow, that the Department of Justice look into whether or not the FBI DOJ infiltrated. Wait, stop right there. Whether the FBI DOJ did anything but then infiltrated and surveilled the Trump campaign for political purposes, that means it cannot be done by the FBI or DOJ. Cannot be done. That means they're going to have complete clearance to all things FISA, all things NSA, all communications, no more redacted nothing. Whoever does this investigation will have to be given exactly the crime. Here is stated the crime with Mueller's and Rosenstein's appointing of him. There was no crime, and that's why Trump says, and now they're trying to look for crimes throughout the whole world. He's talking about Roger Stone. He's talking about Gates, Manafort's past sins from 2004 and 5.
13
Stupid.
Russians that'll
13 Russians that don't exist, a
and the
company that doesn't exist, and they never even hired those people, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, this is good. Keep going. You're good. You're good.
Here's the crime. FBI/DOJ infiltrated or surveilled. Stop right there. If they infiltrated, that's a spy. If they surveilled, that's illegal. The Trump campaign for then political purposes. Now, we already have the Horowitz investigation that is supposed to be investigating the FBI and DOJ for political partisanship and weaponizing those two agencies against the campaign. So far, we have the hint, and now a second hint. Because when this came out, when this started exploding about Stephen Halpern, then what did they do? Oh, I'm going to indict another Roger Stone IT guy. Okay. Or question another guy. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Stupid things from the Mueller to try to distract again. What is really happening here is it's all come unglued. And the very thing that Mueller was trying to hide, the FISA court abuse, Trump mentions in these tweets, the surveilling of him, the infiltration by not just Stephen Halper, but the ones we've mentioned. Carter Page was the spy, one of them. Sergei Milian Parachenko was a spy. Felix Sater was a spy. Franklin Foer was a spy. There were so many spies. Christopher Steele was a spy. Cody Shearer was a spy. Sidney Rosenblum was a spy. They all.
No,
Blumenthal. I can't name them all. Nellie Orr was a spy. Bill Orr was a spy.
Bruce.
Kaplan, Weiner.
Bruce, you got to know the names of the players.
Baker, McCabe. Oh my! Don't get me started. I can list 55 people.
Oh, are you kidding?
Or 58 people who are part of this conspiracy.
It's huge.
Absolutely
huge.
Nailed.
Huge, but you know
cannot
the thing
get out
is,
of it.
They just need to circle the Beltway and lock them all in D.C.
And unfortunately, Michael Horowitz will have to go down too, and Jeff Sessions will have to go down because they are now complicit with these crimes, either after the fact or before the fact.
Not to mention, once we start taking this down, then we can go back to 9/11 and who's behind the murder of Americans on American soil.
Which is probably the leverage that they're using to take down Eric Schneiderman. That's the reason he stepped down without a fight. That's the reason that when Preet Bharara was kicked out, what's he doing? He's just waiting. He's as guilty as all of them. That's the reason Loretta Lynch tucked her tail under her legs and ran away. That's the reason James Baker and Corton, the lawyers all jump ship. Lisa Page, they're all jumping. All the lawyers, they're out. Why? Because then there's this weird rule that Jeff Sessions says, I'm not going to question Hillary Clinton. She's a private person now. I'm not going to question the people who've quit because they don't work for us anymore. Michael Horowitz can't get to them anymore because why? They don't work for us anymore. So,
well, that may have worked in the good old days.
Jeff Sessions was the first one to say, I'm not going to create another special counsel because the Michael Horowitz's investigation, which we're spending a lot of money on, is doing a wonderful, comprehensive job. That report is a report which can be flushed down the toilet. We've already told you what's in it. It's not going to be any big revelation. It will not, unfortunately, go as far as some of these revelations that have come out. And I think that's the reason, one of the reasons, the New York Times and Washington Post, the enemies of Trump, have tried to get ahead of the narrative and then state the narrative without stating who it was so that they would protect them, to show that they protected this spy and his life would be in danger if we knew that Stephen Halper.
He wasn't spying, he was investigating.
Well, that's what they now say. He was there to help the Trump team instead of set up. Carter Page
was there to help Trump.
Oh, yes.
Who would have met? Hillary ought to be very upset if she finds that out.
Now, we can't even get past this first one.
Okay, sorry.
Infiltrated. Those are the spies. Surveilled. We already know from James Clapper's testimony, his changing of his testimony, his changing of his testimony again on the media, his changing again of his testimony in the media, that all Americans are surveilled. And of course, Trump was surveilled. But Trump wasn't wiretapped, and he wasn't surveilled. He was surveilled. All Americans are surveilled. He was unmasked. No, he was not unmasked. Everyone in the Trump team was unmasked as part of their regular, it was just normal thing that was going on. John Brennan put the information of the dossier in the daily presidential intelligence briefing under the orders of James Clapper. James Clapper led the entire thing, and James Comey was so stupid that he wanted to delete it, and every time he tried and he did things behind Clapper's back, he got caught. And that's the reason we have 28 treasonous crimes of Comey without even thinking about it, without going to any notes. Those are the crimes that we know Comey committed, and they're involving multiple spies, which we would call infiltration, and surveillance beyond your imagination. Now we know what we had pointed out before, that the British spies, their equivalent to the NSA, the GCHQ, came over and used the head of the NSA's Fort Meade, Maryland, to spy on Donald Trump Jr. in Trump Towers. Okay, through Natalie, the Russian spy they allowed in, through the State Department, FBI, CIA. Everybody had to bow down to allow these 5 Russian spies to come and try to do in the Trump team. This is so pathetic. So when we say surveilled, that's an open and closed case. Infiltrated, that's in the dossier. That's in the Crossfire Hurricane investigation that still goes on to this day, called the Robert Mueller Special Counsel investigation. And then for the campaign for political purposes, we already have the evidence of Strzok and Page, how they hated them. We have Stephen Halpern coming over to America and going on air on Russia Today and other channels saying that Hillary Clinton is the best choice for America. All the people, we actually have them on tape saying these things. We have Dmitry Alperovitch saying that he lied about the hacking of the Democratic National Committee. Okay, and then the last part, and if any such demands or requests were made by people within the Obama administration. Okay, remember, all the people they just mentioned, the FBI, the DOJ, those are all within the Obama administration. So it's an open and closed case of the crime. He already states the crime. We already know they're guilty of all those crimes. We know by their own admission. We know by their own testimony. We have it on videotape. We have it in writing. We have it in Nunes's report. We have it in so many documents that it's absurd. So what he has demanded here is another special counsel. If the special counsel does not start using Rudy Giuliani methods. Now, they didn't use those methods until they found out one thing, and that's Mueller, under Giuliani's pressure, had to admit that he knows that it's the law, that he can't charge Trump with a crime while he's a sitting president. And Rosenstein's already said there's no collusion between Trump team, Trump and Russians, nothing. And the 3 investigations that have gone on, the Mueller investigation and the 2 previous investigations, the joint assessment of Russian interference in the election that was given out in December 2016, all says it was, it wasn't Trump or Trump team or anybody like that. It was Russia Today and Sputnik, 2 Russian channels in America, and the hacking of the DNC. Complete nonsense. So what we see here is this is an open and closed case. A junior lawyer who had given to the Hillary campaign, married George Soros's daughter, and had gone to the Bohemian Grove and taken vows to the, those demon gods that they take vows to. Even that lawyer could get this case and get these people charged and put 58 people behind bars, if not treason.
We have to
a junior lawyer, an idiot on their side is what I'm saying. An idiot,
if the
complete left-winger, nutcase lawyer, if he couldn't win this case, then he did not go through law school. I could win this case.
Go for it, Thomas. Give him a thumbs up to send Thomas up there to take care of it all.
We're sending Michael McKibben.
Oh, Michael McKibben. He would be a good one. He's an engineer, and he has the dirt. He has this amazing crime line.
He can take care of it.
He would be an excellent choice.
Because the same people have beat up on him for 17 years.
Yes, he knows exactly where the skeletons
with these things.
are.
I read Trump tweets because that's the only real news, folks. If you want to know what's going on, read Trump tweets. And what you'll do is Betsy has gone out and found all of the ancillary information and brought it for you, so you'll know why Trump's saying what Trump is saying, because Trump has the behind-the-scenes thing, and because Either we are directly aligned with him somehow, or he's listening to us, or we're listening to him, or somehow we're listening to his heartbeat. Because guess what? Last night we said this. We said the tide had
Don't yell on
turned.
the microphone.
We said
the tide is turning.
We said the critical mass had been reached, and we didn't know why, and we couldn't understand why. We think we might know why. He uses the dark ones against the dark ones. He uses the swamp creatures. So he got a bigger alligator to go after, the Mueller alligator, and this alligator is chewing on Comey, and that is DeGenova. And then he got a bigger alligator to go after Mueller, and that is Giuliani. Because as soon as you pull the Comey plug out of the swamp, everything starts to drain. But you got to eat Mueller, because Mueller is a distraction for the next election, and if they get the Democrats in, they will, of course, attempt to impeach Trump, which they will not win, because he's committed no crimes, not even any ethical crimes. So, which all of them, it seems that a lot of them have.
I know this is an aside, but why is Roger Stone saying today that Trump may not run in 2020?
Roger Stone said that he was poisoned by the Russians with a terrible, terrible poison. I sometimes wonder what effect that had upon him.
Well, he did come from Manafort and Stone. And
let's not forget that.
I always remind you of that. He didn't come from that organization and have a total transformation and then just to wind up in the Alex Jones world. I don't know. And, I know firsthand that Michael McKibben has, had inroads for Roger to get to the president to tell him about leaders' problems, and nothing's happened.
Manafort, Stone, Kelly, and Black were the most powerful Republican oppositional research / lobbyist group in Washington. You couldn't get elected without them. He even took that over to Ukraine and got Viktor Yanukovych elected twice, once after the Orange Revolution when they kicked him out. The other opposition research team for the Democrats, but they both play both sides, is, of course, the Podesta team, the Podesta brothers.
Oh, and they're named in the tweets.
And they are now closed. Why did they close? Because they were totally corrupt. They had not registered as Russian agents. And 114 times, I believe, Tony Podesta, did I get his name right? Tony Podesta? Tony Podesta?
Yeah.
John and his brother Tony?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, uh-huh.
Tony, John made sure that Tony got into the White House to see Obama 114 times.
Yeah.
For the Russians. For Russians. For Oleg Deripaska, for Ukrainian Russians, for real Russians, for Blavatnik, for all the Russians. They represented all the Russians. Because why? For Joule Energy, which then gave, John Podesta's company a whole bunch of money directly from Putin, and then he gave it to his daughter, and then he said he was innocent. Funny. How about the Election Commission, the Federal Election Commission charges against the Democratic National Committee? How about the fact that so many things have come forward that none of their stories hold water? And so many people are jumping ship and they give their alibis on the way out. Here's what Trump has said in these 9 things. Hopefully I've given you enough information that you can understand these. If the FBI or DOJ was infiltrating a campaign, now notice what he said there, either one of them, and then later he slashes them together and says it's a fait accompli. They were. If the FBI or DOJ was infiltrating a campaign, for the benefit of another campaign, that is a really big deal. Yeah, that is one of the worst crimes you can do in America. Only the release or review of documents that the House Intelligence Committee, also Senate Judiciary, is asking for can give the conclusive answers, drain the swamp. He was giving an order to Jeff Sessions because they recently said, Jeff, will you please give these to us unredacted? And Jeff basically said no. And then he said, you can come over and we're going to talk to you. We're not going to show you the documents. We're just going to talk about it. So Trump was ordering Jeff Sessions to stop being the criminal, treasonous, seditious person that he is.
Enemy of the state. We've always called him out.
Next one. Which was basically 16 hours later. Things are really getting ridiculous, and this is how we felt as we were seeing the news unfold, exactly as he felt. We're just going, is this even real? We got to check these sources, man. This isn't even real. That's why we kept saying, this is speculation. We don't have a source. This is leaked, okay? But it's so convincingly leaked that New York Times and Washington Post are putting out this stuff for Trump. Okay. Things are really getting ridiculous, Trump says. The failing and crooked, but not as crooked as Hillary Clinton, New York Times, has done a long and boring story indicating that the world's most expensive witch hunt has found nothing on Russia and me, so now they are looking at the rest of the world.
Oh, I just had an insight.
That's Roger Stone's guide.
You know what we're doing? We're doing like what these people do with Q psyops. You know, they take the Q stuff.
I love it.
And then they give a narrative about it.
Yes.
So what we could start doing is every time Trump tweets out like this, we could do updates on Trump and explain to people what's going on.
Basically, that is what I do.
Yes. Okay.
I just listen to Trump and go look where he points.
But isn't that what these Q people do? They just take this nonsense that Q puts out, which is probably military intelligence by now, which is an oxymoron. I mean, even if they are smart, it's probably a couple of geeky 20, 30-year-olds sitting around trying to figure out what history and culture and news together means.
Well, as you said, the conclusive proof of whether Q is connected to Trump is to go see what's posted before he did this. And if they didn't tell us beforehand, then they are not connected to him. This is the biggest news since
keep going.
Since the moment he was elected.
Okay.
So, okay. The trip code is okay. I'll be Joram Corsi. The trip code is okay. I verified. It says at real Donald Trump. And it says 4H. I don't know what the H stands for, but I think the 4 stands for the Four Corners of America.
And let me be Tracy Beans.
Oh,
look at my new computer that somebody just magically sent me. And oh no, I'm not bought and paid for. Or how about you want to be Unirock? Be Unirock. First, let me turn on the loud music and the distractions. Blah, 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 blah. But, you know, he always has some beautiful nuggets in there if you just listen long enough. And a shout out to Nathan at Lift the Veil. He is doing, I love
Nathan,
it. I love his cat.
I'm going to call you soon.
Yeah, he's great. I just love Nathan. He's putting it all together. And then my new guy is Zuma Dog. I just love Zuma Dog. I love Zuma Dog here because he actually called me. I mean, that's the first time anyone's actually called Betsy, and he asked the right questions, and I went, good for you, finally somebody asking the right questions. And Defango, we still love you, darling. I still watch Defango all the time. He's crazy.
There's hope for you, Defango, with therapy.
That's right. And you know, maybe Betsy will let him into the inner court. Let's see. I see that Lionel's being called out because he won't talk about SES and Serco.
You mean Elanon? Well, Dianon here, Douganon, is going to sing a song, which is going to be, I don't know what the Donald Trump drops mean, but we are going to read them and we're just going to sing them. At what point does this soon-to-be 20 million witch hunt?
Okay, so go on with the Twitter.
So we salute you, Elanon.
Yes.
We salute you.
Everybody's doing a great job out there. Okay, now let's go.
That was because, why? Because of the New York Times' long and boring story indicating that the world's most expensive witch hunt has found nothing on Russia. How could they have carried this on for a year and before? Every day, no matter what, the world could burn, and they're going to be talking about Mueller's recent leak. Every leak meant that it was compromised and should have been closed. Anyway, so if you don't know what he means here, he's just saying that New York Times on this day is being very boring and basically saying there's no collusion and there's no problem here. And this is basically, it is kind of a witch hunt. Okay? So, but then wait, in just a few hours, look what happens. At what point, it's a new drop from real Donald Trump.
But do we know if it's the Donald Trump or is
the
it
trip code seems to be the same. It says at real Donald Trump.
Okay. Continue on.
And by the way, if I was really Corsi or one of our good friends, I'd get up to go make some pancakes right now, or get some coffee, or let my dog in, or I'd turn on 4 cameras and act like I know something.
Okay, we just
At
love
what
this.
point does this soon-to-be $20 million witch hunt, composed of 13 angry and heavily conflicted Democrats and 2 people who have worked for Obama for 8 years, stop? They have found no collusion with Russia, no obstruction, that they aren't looking at the corruption. Let me point this out. Obstruction. He can't obstruct somebody who is his subordinate. He cannot physically, it is impossible unless there's been impeachment proceedings for him to obstruct anything. It is stupid to even use that word and act like you know law.
How do you really feel about that?
Don't get me upset. But they aren't looking at the corruption. So here he's still backing off and he's still going like, there's a lot of corruption. But what's he pointing at? He's pointing at the corruption inside of that group, that they're conflicted Democrats. They're all a bunch, it's so weighted, it's so partisan, it's disgusting. It's the most partisan group of people you could ever put together. Andrew Weissman, don't get me into going into each one of those evil people. Those are the worst group of evil people. I'm so glad they're all going to go down because of their conspiracy.
Hey, why don't we call this T?
T?
T.
QT?
Yeah, because, it's Trump, it's T. I'll put a big T on there.
Well, I like get your P's and Q's together. So they had their Q's. We could be the P's.
No, you're missing it. No,
I'm missing the whole point.
You're missing the whole point. Okay.
I want to move on to QR. We're going to move on to RT. T. Okay, T-anon. T clearance. We have T clearance. That means you can have tea with the Queen. Now, we have to be all over the place because that's what you do when you do QAnon interpretations, because you don't have anything to really talk about.
But we do, because we've got the T here.
Now, wait a second. Now, these two, which one came first? That one came first. Now that the witch hunt has given up on Russia, it's 2 in 1, isn't it?
No, you read it from the bottom here and then up there.
Why does it did? Oh, he just threw that in. Okay. In the Hillary Clinton campaign, where she deleted 33,000 emails, got 145 million while Secretary of State, paid McCabe's wife 700,000, and got off the FBI hook along with Terry McAuliffe, and so much more. Republicans and real Americans should start getting tough on this scam. So the ... is because he says corruption before in the previous one, and then he goes, oh, here's the corruption. Remember, the 33,000 emails that George Papadopoulos was looking for, they were in Comey's possession. We now know that. Christopher Wray admits it. Okay, the 145 million, that's the tip of the iceberg. We know of 345 million that was paid for that one deal, and so that's corruption, but we know the 145 because of the witness who, William Donald Douglas, Campbell. Okay, I paid McCabe's wife 700. I'm glad he finally hits the right amount. That is the amount, 700,000, and she kept most of it. She ran a bad election to keep it for herself.
Right.
You can keep it as long as you say you're going to use it for another war chest run some other time. And that was a payoff to Terry McAuliffe, who was the initial director of the Clinton Foundation. And so Terry McAuliffe, who now says he wants to be the president, Terry McAuliffe, who staged those things that happened in Charlotte, Terry McAuliffe, who is so corrupt that don't get me started, and so much more, Donald Trump says. Republicans and real Americans should start getting tough on this scam. You see, the scam is Hillary Clinton. He's pointing at the big scam. The whole witch hunt is Hillary Clinton's Russian fake diversion.
Oh, everything. Uranium One, selling America. Oh.
Okay, next one. Now that the witch hunt has given up on Russia and is looking at the rest of the world, they're giving up on Russia because the Russians came back to sue them, to counter-sue them.
Yes, because the company, there was one of the companies wasn't even in existence at the time of the supposed crime.
And the evidence they presented them, it looks like someone did a search for anything ever done in Russian on the internet and gave that huge pile of stuff to them saying, here's the evidence. And they said, but none of it's translated. Show us the stuff that you used. And they said, we don't have a Russian translator, and we didn't translate any of it. In other words, it's all fake, every speck of it. Now that the witch hunt has given up on Russia, as they have, because they're embarrassed, and is looking at the rest of the world, that would be Roger Stone and all the other things, everybody, they should easily be able to take it into the midterm elections, which is their intent from the beginning, and they can put some hurt on the Republican Party. He's stating what we said from the beginning. The intent of the Mueller investigation was to make sure Donald Trump would be impeached and that the Republicans would be kicked out, and that somehow a Democrat would be put in the office of the president, and that they would continue to win from then on because Hillary Clinton was supposed to be the queen. Don't worry about Dems' FISA abuse, missing emails, or fraudulent dossier. He's being sarcastic. Don't worry about Dems' FISA abuse, which is way beyond what anybody said. It's what we said. There was a FISA for Manafort. There was a FISA for Flynn. There was a FISA for Papadopoulos. And there was a FISA for Carter Page and others. And nobody's talking about that. Now they're talking about it. Missing emails, we know where they are. They were in Christopher Wray's possession right now. And no one's talking about them. Are we seeing them? Is anyone looking at them? Or is that investigation closed?
Well, Christopher Wray is senior executive service, so we don't really know what
he's totally
about.
Corrupt.
Yeah.
He was in charge of the criminal division. He was part of the Russian Uranium One.
Right.
He's protecting himself.
Yeah.
And fraudulent dossier, we know all about that. Okay, next one. Whatever happened to the server?
Server!
I told you what happened to it. It got burnt, and it was pounded into pieces to make sure that not one single speck of it would ever survive, because in it was the information that George Soros gave billions illegally, and that they use that to manipulate, and they use these programs to manipulate people, and they use programs to target them right before the election. Everything they accused Trump of doing, they were doing out of that server, the Democratic National Committee server, and that's a fact. Because why? Seth Rich said so to all of his friends, and then he was murdered. Okay, going back, whatever happened to the server? there's a new one, and the other one's long gone. At the center of so much corruption that the Democratic National Committee refused to hand over to the hard-charging, except in the case of Democrats, FBI. I'll go into that in a second. They broke into homes and offices early in the morning, but were afraid to take the server. No, they came. They faked coming publicly so that it was noted in the logs. And they came repeatedly. And they came and they told them they were breached early on. Then they came and told them they were breached again. And then they came and told them that they were breached by Russians. And then they hired, supposedly, Dmitry Alperovitch. That's all lies. No, they knew they were breached in December of 2015. It's in the WikiLeaks. And at that point, they knew that server was the most damnable thing for Hillary's campaign. I'm certain that it disappeared very quickly and that Dmitry Alperovitch, he didn't even look at a server. He was called in because Alexandra Chalupa, the Atlantic Council, hired their top IT guy, Dmitry Alperovitch, who has now been chosen to be truth. The truth, it's like Snopes for Europe. It's going to be the Truth Ministry. They're going to be the fact checkers. Dmitry Alperovitch and the lady who started the Russian dossier is going to be the fact checkers for all of Europe to make sure that elections aren't rigged, and they want to put those fact checkers here in America before the election. Mm-hmm. That's what's really going on in terms of that. So, what that server would take them all down if you got a hold of that server. And why hasn't the Podesta brother been charged and arrested like others after being forced to close down his very large and successful firm? He's speaking here of Tony, because Tony did not register as a foreign agent, as I pointed out, and they went after Flynn, and that's why they charged him. They went after Rick Gates and Paul Manafort, same thing. They didn't do it. They let them, after they came to the special counsel hearing where they were questioned, at the end of it, they provided them with the forms to file to make them legal. That is a fact. That was reported, it was seen, and people saw it, and then they filed them, and we saw the filing papers. How come Flynn didn't get to do that? Why didn't Manafort get to do that?
But but then it turns out that Flynn is a spy.
Well, let's say Flynn was pulled in.
Or a mole, or whatever.
Well, no, that's the reason they're calling him a mole, because they're going to say that Flynn was pulled in. Flynn was sucked in by Stephen Halper to join Strategic Communications Laboratories, which owns Cambridge Analytica, which makes Cambridge Analytica look like Boy Scouts. They have corrupted in 25 countries elections, and they're proud of it, and they'll tell you they can do it anywhere. That's who George Soros uses. Okay, all the color elections, that's who you use. So anybody evil knows this. He was pulled into that because he was interested in the Russian thing, because of the Russians being connected to Syria. Michael Flynn was trying to save the Syrian people and trying to make Erdogan not go rogue bad like he has. And we said this was going to happen, and it did. We could have stopped this. We could have stopped it. Gulen Fethullah, why are we protecting him? Send him back to Erdogan, and Erdogan will not be at war with us, folks. It's real simple. Anyway, don't get me started on that one. Is it because he is a very well-connected Democrat working in the swamp of Washington, D.C.? Well-connected. He's saying Tony. He's saying, is it because Tony's his brother?
How about all of his pedophilia, blackmail, all that? He keeps everybody in check and order, which goes right into this whole human trafficking issues.
You nailed it. John Podesta has the dirt on everybody through
Right.
Jeff Epstein and his island and all the corruption in D.C. that is connected to a bunch of groups we're not going to mention now. Okay, next one. The witch hunt finds no collusion with Russia. So now they're looking at the rest of the world. Oh, great. So that was his last straw. Okay? He posted that. Has his attitude changed? No. So, but in between that 35-minute marker and that 11-minute marker, in those 25
What
minutes...
do you think he was doing in that 25-minute period?
He was in the White House, and somebody came in and told him what we said yesterday. The same content, maybe not from us, same content. Mr. President, you have multiple moles, and we know who they are. Uh-huh. And they go all the way to Obama. They go to Hillary. These are Hillary's best friends. We can name all of them. Here's the name. Here's the list of the 58 of them. And he said, okay, where's the proof of this? He says, the mainstream media is bringing it to you. At that point, he knew the tide turned.
Okay.
Okay? And then he says, I hereby demand and will do so officially tomorrow, that the Department of Justice look into whether or not the FBI DOJ, one entity, that means collusion, that means special counsel. Sorry, I did it again. Look into whether or not the FBI/DOJ infiltrated or surveilled the Trump campaign for political purposes, and if any such demands or requests were made by people within the Obama administration. It's going to go all the way to the top. It's going to include all your favorite people. Loretta Lynch, Valerie Jarrett,
Susan Rice, Sally Yates,
Joe Biden,
Joe Biden,
Samantha Powers.
Oh, yes.
Don't get me started on the list. Everyone who signed a FISA request for these nonsense. And by the way, as I say, there's 4 or 5 FISA requests, and they were renewed for a long time. Some of them are still active at this moment, so who's ever signing them now is also going down.
This is not going to stop.
That'd be Rod Rosenstein.
Because patriots like us are going to keep on until they're all gone. And that'll go all the way back to Eric Holder, George Bush, Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
All the way back to 9/11. And when we're finished, getting all these people, we're coming after who really is running America.